It's easy to imagine terror birds as feathered nightmares, but the truth is more surprising. The first of these apex predators, emerging after the dinosaurs, was barely the size of a modern stork. That small beginning led to a dynasty that would dominate for millions of years. In the grand story of Earth, few chapters are as captivating as the age of dinosaurs. They shaped ecosystems for over 60 million years, adapting into forms that still fascinate us. But when their time ended, an unexpected sequel began, where supporting characters took center stage. Enter the forest Rassids, or, as they're more commonly known, terror birds. They rose from the ashes of extinction, proving that nature abhors a vacuum, especially when it comes to apex predators. Around 53 million years ago, in the early Eocene, the world was vastly different. It was a hothouse, with lush forests stretching from pole to pole, filled with diverse life that emerged after the dinosaurs. In this steamy prehistoric paradise, the first terror bird, Paleopsilopterus, appeared. Standing only about 3 feet tall, this Brazilian bird might not have seemed terrifying. It was, after all, about the size of a modern stork. Hardly the stuff of nightmares. But appearances can be deceiving. Paleopsilopterus had something its contemporaries lacked: potential. Its agility and speed set Paleopsilopterus apart, traits that would become hallmarks of its descendants. The Oligocene Epoch, from about 34 to 23 million years ago, marked a turning point in the terror bird saga. It was during this time that the family truly began to live up to its name with the emergence of giants that would have given pause to even the bravest of prey, the Paraphysornis. This Brazilian bird was an absolute behemoth that stood 4.5 feet tall and weighed a whopping 400 pounds. To put that into perspective, Paraphysornis outweighed the largest living bird today, the ostrich. This was no lightweight contender. Paraphysornis was built like a feathered tank with robust bones that spoke of raw power. Paleontologists believe that Paraphysornis hunted using a combination of kicks, slashes, and powerful jabs with its sharp beak. It's a hunting style that might remind one of a prehistoric version of mixed martial arts, with Paraphysornis as the undefeated heavyweight champion of its time. But Paraphysornis wasn't just a mindless brute. Like many of its terror bird kin, it likely possessed a level of intelligence that set it apart from other contemporary predators. Studies of terror bird brain cases suggest that they had well-developed visual and auditory centers, indicating keen senses that would have made them formidable hunters. As impressive as Paraphysornis was, it was merely setting the stage for what was to come. As we step into the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, spanning from about 23 to 2.5 million years ago, we encounter the true giants of the terror bird family. These were creatures that pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be a bird, reaching sizes that rivaled the predatory dinosaurs of old. 3 names stand out in this pantheon of avian terrors: Titanis, Kelenken, and Brontornis. Each of these genera represents the pinnacle of the terror bird lineage, and each had its own claim to fame. Titanis, the youngest and smallest of the trio, was also the most adventurous. While most terror birds were content to dominate South America, Titanis had grander ambitions. It crossed the newly formed land bridge connecting North and South America during the Great American Interchange, becoming the only large South American predator to successfully establish itself in North America. Unlike most of its relatives, this bird lived in what is now the United States, including Texas, Florida, and California. Standing 6.6 feet tall, Titanis would have been an imposing sight for the mammals of North America. Imagine the shock of a Pleistocene horse or ground sloth, accustomed to watching out for saber-toothed cats and dire wolves, suddenly confronted by this alien predator, half bird, half nightmare. But as impressive as Titanis was, it was dwarfed by its cousins back in South America. Kelenken, named after a mythological Tehuelche spirit, stood a towering 9.8 feet tall and weighed around 550 pounds. This was a bird the size of a grizzly bear, with a head larger than that of a horse, and a beak that could crush bone. Smaller, faster species might have specialized in chasing down swift prey, like small mammals and reptiles, while the larger, more powerful species could have employed ambush tactics or even taken on larger, more dangerous quarry. While their imposing size and fearsome beaks often steal the spotlight, the true power of terror birds lay in their highly developed senses. Recent studies of terror bird skulls and brain cases have revealed that these prehistoric predators were equipped with sensory capabilities that put them leagues ahead of many of their contemporaries. While terror birds might not have had eyesight quite as sharp as modern raptors like eagles or hawks, they were far from being visually impaired. Their eyes were well developed and positioned to provide excellent depth perception, a crucial advantage for any predator. What really set terror bird vision apart was its versatility. These birds were equally adept at seeing in bright daylight and in the dim light of dawn and dusk, making them effective hunters around the clock. As for their hearing, the inner ear structure of terror birds suggests an acute sensitivity to low-frequency sounds. This ability would have allowed them to detect the footsteps and movements of potential prey, even when hidden by dense vegetation. I imagine a terror bird standing motionless in the prehistoric forests of South America, its head cocked slightly to one side. To a casual observer, it might appear to be resting or even dozing. But in reality, every fiber of its being is alert, its incredibly sensitive ears picking up the faintest rustle of leaves or the softest patter of tiny feet. In an instant, it can pinpoint the location of its unsuspecting prey and launch into action. This combination of visual and auditory prowess made terror birds the complete predatory package. It's no wonder these birds were able to dominate their ecosystems for millions of years. But even the mightiest rulers faced their downfall. And the reign of the terror birds was no exception. For millions of years, these avian predators had ruled supreme in South America, developing into a diverse array of species that filled various ecological niches. But somewhere along the line, their luck ran out. Traditionally, the extinction of the terror birds was linked to the Great American Interchange, a major paleobiogeographic event that occurred about 2.7 million years ago. This event saw the formation of the Isthmus of Panama, creating a land bridge between North and South America. As a result, animals from both continents were able to migrate across this newly formed connection, leading to a significant reshuffling of fauna. The conventional wisdom held that the influx of new predators from North America, including cats, dogs, and bears, outcompeted the terror birds, leading to their eventual extinction. It was a neat and tidy explanation that seemed to make perfect sense. However, as is often the case in science, the truth has turned out to be more complex and nuanced. Recent studies have cast doubt on this simple competition-based extinction model, revealing a more intricate tapestry of factors that led to their demise. The terror birds. I've often wondered what it would have been like to see one in person. For years, I believed they had gone extinct about 1 million years ago, a respectable run. But new fossil evidence has dramatically altered that timeline. Some smaller species, it turns out, lived as recently as 96,000 years ago. And then there's the tantalizing discovery of fossils attributed to an unidentified terror bird species dated to just 18,000 years ago. If confirmed, that would mean they survived almost until humans arrived in South America. One of the primary challenges to the idea that placental predators doomed the terror bird comes from the fossil record itself. Most terror birds, along with many of their South American competitors, had already disappeared long before placental predators arrived in significant numbers. The success of Titanis in North America also suggests that at least some terror birds were more than capable of competing with mammals. They coexisted with large canids and felines for millions of years. So, if competition alone didn't doom them, what did? As is often the case, the answer likely involves a complex interplay of factors, climate change in particular. From the Oligocene to the Pliocene, Earth's climate was on a long-term cooling trend, culminating in a series of ice ages. This global cooling would have profoundly impacted the ecosystems that terror birds called home. As temperatures dropped and habitats changed, the lush forests that many species relied on would have given way to more open grasslands. While some terror birds may have adapted, others would have struggled. The larger, more specialized species, in particular, might have found it difficult to find enough prey to sustain their massive bodies. And while the influx of new competitors from North America might not have been the primary cause of extinction, it would have added additional preys to already stressed populations. Despite the challenges they faced, the terror birds proved remarkably resilient. It's sobering to think that if they had managed to hang on for just a few thousand years longer, our understanding of the natural world might be very different today. It also makes me think of other dominant animals. Today, the lion may be the king of the jungle, but the tiger stands out as the largest, most powerful, and most skilled of them all. But there was one species in particular that dwarfed the modern tiger in size, the Nandong tiger. In the early 20th century, Dutch paleontologists excavating near the village of Ninggandong on the island of Java in Indonesia found something that stopped them in their tracks. They unearthed bones that belonged to a tiger, but ones bigger than anyone in the modern world had ever seen. Further research revealed that this formidable beast was larger than its modern-day counterparts, with adults weighing up to 20 to 25% more than the average present-day Siberian tiger. Larger males typically weighed upwards of 400 kilograms, making them close contenders for the title of largest feline ever. Judging from the enormous size of these giants, it's easy to assume that tigers have always been this large. However, early tigers, existing long before the Nyandong tigers, were notably smaller in terms of body size and weight. This smaller stature could be attributed to the available prey and the ecological niches they occupied. A smaller body size offered energy conservation and agility advantages across various terrains. Early big cats related to tigers, such as Panthera paleosinensis, likely averaged around 70 to 120 kilon in weight. Following them was the Trinil tiger, popularly believed to be the ancestor of all known Indonesian subspecies. I find myself constantly drawn to the stories of creatures that pushed the boundaries of their time, creatures that existed on a scale that seems almost unreal to us now. Take, for example, the Ngandong tiger. Imagine a tiger that makes modern tigers look almost diminutive. This tiger, weighing up to 350 kilograms, roamed what is now Indonesia during the Pleistocene epoch. It was a time of giants, and the Ngandong tiger was among the most impressive. As time progressed, the Trinil tiger, a predecessor, gave way to the Ngandong tiger. The Trinil specimens I've examined suggest they were significantly smaller, weighing between 110 to 150 kilos. This gradual increase in size, I believe, was driven by intense competition for food. The carnivores of that era needed to eat more, gain more weight, to truly dominate. The Ngandong tiger wasn't alone in its quest for dominance. It faced rivals like the Smilodon, the giant hyena, and even dire wolves. The Smilodon, with its saber-like canines reaching up to 12 inches, was a formidable predator, capable of inflicting deep, debilitating wounds. In contrast, the Ngandong tiger possessed more robust canines, similar to modern tigers, which were ideal for crushing bone and delivering powerful bites. Though perhaps less specialized for deep punctures, their bite was devastating. Size-wise, the largest Smilodon species, the Smilodon populator, weighed between 220 and 436 kilos and stood 120 centimeter tall. A less imposing rival would have been the giant short-faced hyena, standing about 90 to 100 centimeters at the shoulder and averaging 110 kilo in weight. But the dire wolves presented a different kind of challenge. While smaller and less powerful individually, they hunted in packs, a tactic that the solitary Ngandong tiger would have struggled to counter. This pack-hunting strategy would have been a significant advantage in the competition for prey. However, the Ngandong tiger also faced a threat that was just beginning to emerge: early humans. Over 80 individual remains of early humans have been found in Southeast Asia, suggesting they likely crossed paths with the great tiger. While seemingly outmatched in terms of size and strength, early humans possessed intelligence. I believe they developed tools and strategies to defend themselves, pushing the tigers back into the open woodlands and establishing their own presence in the region. The open woodlands of Sundaland in the Pleistocene epoch, with their scattered trees and grasslands, provided good visibility for stalking prey and supported a diverse array of herbivores. However, hunting some of the larger herbivores may have been a difficult task, even for the massive Ngandong tiger. Stegodons, for instance, were massive proboscideans, closely related to elephants. Even smaller species, like Stegodon sondi, are estimated to have weighed around 12.7 tons. Their thick skin offered considerable protection against bites and claws. For the tiger, scavenging or targeting vulnerable individuals would have been the most viable strategy. Water buffalo, known as boobalus, also presented a formidable challenge. Some species weighed over 1,000 kilos and moved in herds. Facing a herd of water buffalo head-on would have been a dangerous proposition. I've always been fascinated by the idea of evolution designing a creature specifically to take down giants. And just a blink of an eye ago, in Earth's timeline, such a feline did prowl our planet. It wasn't just any big cat. It was the undisputed monarch of the Ice Age, Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat extraordinaire. The Smilodon, with its iconic saber teeth and fierce appearance, is one of the most recognizable extinct predators, a status cemented by its portrayal in films like Ice Age. But its story starts not with instant recognition, but with a bit of mistaken identity. Rewind about 160 years and picture Brazil. It's here our tale begins, with a discovery that would initially perplex the scientific community. When the first Smilodon remains were unearthed, paleontologists didn't immediately recognize them as belonging to a cat. In fact, their initial guess was way off the mark. Based on some isolated cheek teeth that bore a resemblance to those of modern hyenas, they dubbed this new find hyena Neoga. However, within a couple of years, the tides of discovery brought forth a tsunami of new fossils. Suddenly, scientists weren't just looking at a few teeth, but a veritable jigsaw puzzle of prehistoric proportions. Foot bones, skull fragments, and those iconic canines, which seemed almost comically oversized for any mouth, painted a very different picture. As the pieces fell into place, it became clear that this was no hyena. Instead, they were dealing with a completely new genus of felid, one that was not only massive in size, but also built like a prehistoric tank. This feline was far more robust than any modern cat, a true heavyweight champion of the Ice Age. In light of this revelation, a new name was in order. Thus, Smilodon populator was born, Smilodon meaning knife tooth, and populator roughly translating to the destroyer, or he who brings devastation. It's a fitting moniker for a predator that redefined what it meant to be lethal. With its new identity established, the scientific community dove headfirst into unraveling the Smilodon's family tree. This quest for understanding continues to this day, with researchers currently placing our knife-toothed friend in the extinct subfamily Machaerodontinae. This subfamily is home to most of what we colloquially call saber-toothed tigers, though saber-toothed cats is more accurate since these ancient felines aren't closely related to modern tigers or any living cats for that matter. In fact, their closest living relatives might be members of the Felinae subfamily, which includes our domestic kitties. Within the Machaerodontinae, Smilodon found itself in an even more exclusive club, the Smilodontini, or, as some paleontologists like to call them, the dirk-toothed cats. This group is pretty exclusive, with only 5 known genera calling it home. But what Smilodontini lacks in diversity, it makes up for in star power thanks to Smilodon. To put that in perspective, that's about the same as a medium-sized polar bear. Interestingly, unlike many modern big cats, Smilodons didn't seem to be too hung up on gender norms. Studies suggest that there wasn't a significant size difference between males and females, a trait scientists call low sexual dimorphism. In practical terms, this means that, regardless of whether you were facing a male Smilodon or a female Smilodon, you were in for equally big trouble. Now, being big is impressive. But Smilodon wasn't just large. It was built like a prehistoric tank. The Smilodon's heel bone was a marvel of natural engineering, robust and elongated. In fact, some paleontologists speculate that these Ice Age acrobats could have out-jumped modern lions, which have been observed clearing heights of 15 feet or 4.5 meters. Imagine a cat the size of a bear capable of leaping over a one-story building. But the Smilodon's athletic prowess didn't stop at its fancy footwork. If modern big cats have arms that could crush you, Smilodon's forelimbs took it to the next level. We're talking about limbs that were approximately 20% thicker than what you'd expect for a cat of its size, giving it incredible strength, surpassing even that of the larger American lion. And at the end of those muscular arms, Smilodon was further armed with fully retractable claws, razor-sharp and curved like prehistoric scimitars. They were proportionally enormous, even for a cat of Smilodon's size. Adding to this theory, Smilodon could open its jaw to 120 degrees, almost twice as wide as a human. But it wasn't just brawn and teeth. Brain scans suggest excellent coordination, sharp hearing, and top-notch vision. Their eye socket shape hints at binocular vision, crucial for a predator relying on ambush tactics. And if that wasn't enough, they were fast. Many fossils show trauma to their sternums, injuries from high-speed collisions. Smilodon's traits made it a versatile hunter, capable of taking down a variety of megafauna. In North America, they preyed on giant bison, camels, mastodons, and Columbian mammoths. In South America, targets included toxodons, litoptons, and glyptodons, along with horses and camelids. Some even suggest they went after caimans. We know what they ate from skeletal evidence like tooth marks on bones or remains found alongside prey, which provide clues about its diet. One big question is whether Smilodon was a lone hunter or a team player. The La Brea tar pits in California are a gold mine, preserving countless Ice Age animals that got stuck in the asphalt. Most bones aren't from trapped herbivores, but from predators that got stuck trying to eat them. Smilodon fossils are the second most common find, with over 166,000 bones attributed to it. This high number has led some scientists to suggest Smilodon might have been social. Modern social cat species tend to respond to distress calls. It was also adaptable. Fossils have been found in a diverse array of environments, from grasslands and plains to woodlands and closed forests, from savannas to subtropical forests, and even mammoth steppes. This adaptability allowed Smilodon to live alongside a veritable who's who of Pleistocene megafauna. We're talking about a world where you might encounter short-faced bears, proboscideans, ground sloths the size of cars, armored glyptodonts, the rhino-like toxodon, camels, deer, horses, bison, and even terror birds. But there was one more species that Smilodon encountered in its twilight years, one that would change the face of the planet forever: humans. It's believed that our ancestors might have first crossed paths with Smilodon around 25,000 years ago. Now, imagine being one of those early humans, armed with nothing but primitive tools, coming face to face with a saber-toothed cat. The relationship between humans and Smilodon was likely a tense one. After all, we were competing for many of the same food sources. And unfortunately for our ancestors, by the time humans arrived on the scene, only the largest spopulator and Spatelis remained. Given that Meganterion, the possible predecessor of Smilodon, was known to occasionally prey on Homo erectus, it's not a stretch to imagine that Smilodon might have considered early humans as potential prey too. I find myself often pondering the fate of the Smilodon. It's humbling to consider that even with our technology and social strategies, early humans likely had tense encounters with these saber-toothed cats. A 2021 discovery of a petroglyph depicting humans observing a Smilodon from a distance offers a tantalizing glimpse into that shared world. But, as we know, that coexistence didn't last. The youngest remains of both Smilodon fatalis and Smilodon populator date back roughly 10,000 years, around the same time agriculture was emerging. The reasons behind their extinction are still debated among paleontologists. Some believe humans played a role, either through competition or habitat alteration. However, the more widely accepted theory points to the Quaternary extinction event, a period of significant climate change that led to the disappearance of many large animal species in North and South America. As the megafauna that Smilodon depended on began to die out, the saber-toothed predator found itself in a precarious position. The very adaptations that made Smilodon such a successful hunter of large prey became a liability. It was too specialized, and when the world changed, it couldn't adapt. The extinction of Smilodon marked the end of an era. It was the last of the saber-toothed cats, not just in the Americas, but worldwide. With its passing, a lineage that had dominated the planet for over 20 million years came to an end. Its legacy resonates, a reminder of the fragile balance between species and their environments. As we face our own period of rapid change, the lesson of Smilodon is clear. Survival requires adaptation. Most apex predators are limited by their environment. Lions rule the savanna, but are helpless in water. Great whites dominate the ocean, but can't survive on land. Even T-Rex was confined to dry ground. For over a century, paleontologists assumed the greatest hunters were strictly terrestrial. Then, one discovery shattered that belief overnight: Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Longer than a bus, armed with the skull of a crocodile and the body of a streamlined aquatic hunter, this was no ordinary killer. This was the nightmare that redefined what it meant to be an apex predator, a monster that could rival, and in many ways surpass, even T-Rex itself. The first thing that strikes you about Spinosaurus isn't just its length, though at 50 to 59 feet, it dwarfs even the largest T-Rex specimens. It's not even the massive sail rising from its back. No, what truly unsettles you is how perfectly wrong everything about this creature appears, yet how devastatingly effective each bizarre feature proved to be. Take that skull, a narrow, elongated nightmare stretching nearly 6 feet long. If you've ever stared into the eyes of a large crocodile, you understand the primal fear that comes from seeing a predator perfectly designed for aquatic ambush. Now imagine that same sinister profile, scaled up to dwarf any modern crocodilian, mounted on a body that could rear up 20 feet into the air. This massive dorsal fin dominated Spinosaurus's silhouette like the warning flag of death itself. Scientists debate its exact function: thermoregulation, display, fat storage for surviving dry seasons. But its psychological impact is undeniable. Picture this nightmare rising from murky water. First, the elongated snout breaking the surface. Then, those cold, reptilian eyes. And finally, that towering sail cutting through the air like the dorsal fin of some impossible shark. The thought of Spinosaurus using its sail as a keel, it haunts me. To think of that massive structure providing stability and control, even in shallow water, is chilling. It paints a picture of a perfectly balanced killing machine. Even at 7 to 8 tons, it had the mass to overpower almost any prey. Yet, it remained streamlined enough to move through water with deadly grace. We fear the great white shark, a master of aquatic predation honed over millions of years. But Spinosaurus had even longer to sharpen the same deadly craft, with added intelligence, versatility, and a size that dwarfs any marine predator alive today. It wasn't just a hunter of rivers and lakes. It transformed every waterway it entered into its personal killing field. Imagine being a large fish in the rivers of Cretaceous Africa. Generations of your lineage have adapted to recognize danger, the shadow of a pterosaur overhead, the ripples of an approaching crocodile, subtle current shifts. Every instinct is tuned to read these watery warning signs. But none of that mattered when Spinosaurus arrived. The attack began before you even realized you were being hunted. While you scanned for familiar threats, death approached from an angle you weren't prepared for. The shoreline. Those paddle feet weren't just for show. They propelled Spinosaurus through the water with surprising speed and maneuverability, allowing it to pursue prey through underwater mazes where other large predators would become trapped. It wasn't limited to ambush like purely aquatic predators or shoreline attacks like terrestrial ones. This nightmare could adapt its hunting strategy in real time. Miss your target underwater? Simply rise to the surface and snatch prey from above with those powerful arms. Prey takes refuge in shallow water. Those webbed feet provided perfect stability for wading attacks that no other large theropod could attempt. And the hunting scenarios become even more terrifying when you consider Spinosaurus's intelligence. Crocodiles are clever hunters, but they operate on instinct. Spinosaurus possessed the problem-solving capabilities of a large theropod, the same cognitive tools that made others such effective pack hunters. Except this intelligence was applied to an environment where most prey had never faced anything remotely similar. Even more disturbing was how Spinosaurus turned drinking water into a death trap. Every animal in Cretaceous Africa needed to approach rivers and lakes to survive. For millions of years, this had been a calculated risk. Stay alert, drink quickly, watch for crocodiles. Suddenly, the riverbank itself became unreliable. That submerged log might be a 50-foot predator. Those ripples might not indicate current or wind, but the approach of something that could strike from below with the force of a freight train. The fossil evidence suggests Spinosaurus didn't just occasionally venture into water. It lived there. This wasn't a terrestrial predator that sometimes waded into rivers for a quick meal. This was a creature so perfectly adapted to aquatic life that it spent most of its time submerged, transforming ancient waterways into hunting territories more dangerous than any terrestrial predator could create. In a world where survival depended on understanding and avoiding threats, Spinosaurus represented something unprecedented. A predator that eliminated the fundamental distinction between land and water safety. It didn't just dominate two worlds, it merged them into a single, inescapable killing field. And, of course, we can't discuss the perfect killing machine without mentioning its teeth. Conical, dagger-like, and built to clamp down on prey that thought the water would save them. Each one wasn't just for piercing. It was angled backward like barbed hooks, creating a living fish trap built on a terrifying principle: easy entry, impossible exit. Meet Epoch, a colossal predator so fearsome it could rival a lioness in size, and had jaws powerful enough to outmatch a grizzly bear. In simpler terms, this was a dog that could eat a lion. Its name says it all, Epicion, meaning more than a dog. Because calling it just a dog doesn't do it justice. The story of Epoch's discovery represents one of paleontology's most intriguing progressions from misidentification to revelation. Over 160 years ago, in the fossil-rich sediments of Nebraska, scientists unearthed the first fragments of what would later be recognized as the largest canid species ever to walk the Earth. The initial discovery consisted of a fragmented lower jaw, while obviously from a large carnivore provided only hints of the creature's true nature. The jaw's wolf-like characteristics led early paleontologists to classify it as a subgenus of Canis, the genus that includes modern wolves, coyotes, and jackals. This classification seemed logical at the time, given the limited fossil evidence. However, as more complete specimens emerged from North American fossil beds throughout the following decades, a much more complex picture began to emerge. The discovery of complete skulls proved particularly revolutionary. These specimens revealed that while certain features resembled those of wolves, others were startlingly different. The skull. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. The enlarged premolars, the robust cranial structure. They reminded me more of a lion or a hyena than any dog I knew. It posed a question that kept me up at night. What was this creature? The answer, as so often happens in paleontology, lay in the details of that skull. The specialized premolars, the remarkably robust jaw, they pointed to a very specific lineage, the Borophagini. This group, a subfamily within the larger canid family, represents one of the most successful, yet strangely overlooked branches of the dog family tree. These Borophagini were incredibly diverse, with 66 known species. What defined them was their powerful dentition, their short but deep jaws, and a fifth toe, a feature that's been lost in many modern canids. For over 15 million years, these creatures dominated the North American landscape, evolving into an impressive array of forms. Some were no bigger than modern foxes, while others rivaled or even exceeded the size of today's grey wolves. And among this diverse group, Epicion emerged as the ultimate bone-crushing dog, its name literally meaning more than a dog. Recent studies of modern canids have helped us understand where Epicion fits in. The Paraphysornis, it seems, were a highly specialized branch, following a unique evolutionary path, distinct from the lineage that would eventually lead to modern wolves and dogs. This specialization explains both Epicion's unusual features and its eventual fate. Within the Epicion genus, 3 distinct species emerged, each filling a slightly different ecological niche: Epicion savus, Epicion haydeni, and Epicion elodontoides. While all were impressive predators, they differed significantly in size and build. The smaller species, Savus and Elodontoides, were more gracile, built for agility and speed. Even these smaller species, though, typically weighed twice as much as a modern German Shepherd. But it was Epicion haydeni that truly pushed the boundaries of canid adaptation. Recent studies of well-preserved specimens have revealed truly impressive dimensions. Adults routinely reached lengths of 2.4 meters, almost 8 feet, rivaling the length of a grizzly bear. They stood 90 centimeters, or 35 inches, at the shoulder, comparable to the height of a wild deer. This massive frame supported an equally impressive body mass, with average adults weighing between 125 and 170 kilograms. That's 275 to nearly 375 pounds, making them heavier than modern leopards and comparable to large jaguars. Perhaps most intriguingly, Epicion haydeni exhibited significant size polymorphism, meaning there was variation in size among individuals of the same species. Some individuals reached weights of around 170 kilos, nearly 375 pounds. That's the weight of a medium-sized male lion, making them the heaviest canids ever known to have existed. But size wasn't Epicion's only advantage. Its most remarkable feature was its bite. It makes you wonder, were they solitary hunters, or did they hunt in packs? The clues, it turns out, lie in their bones. The abundance of Epicion remains suggests stable populations, a trait more common in pack hunters. And their physical build, well, they were robust. Think heavier bones, a sturdier structure than most canids, modern or extinct. This might have made them less agile than modern wolves, but it would have been a real advantage in close combat, grappling with larger prey. Studies of their limbs suggest they were built for explosive power, short bursts of speed, rather than long chases. Ambush tactics, perhaps? In that context, pack hunting would have been incredibly effective, allowing them to surround and overwhelm prey that might have otherwise escaped. But here's where it gets really interesting. Epicion could process and digest bone. That's not something you see every day. Their premolars and molars were specialized, short and pyramid-like, with wide bases, much like those of modern hyenas. It's a fascinating example of unrelated species evolving similar adaptations to exploit the same ecological niche. Fossilized feces associated with Epicion have confirmed this, revealing high concentrations of processed bone material. This bone-crushing ability would have given them a real edge. From the armored plates that defined its body to the distinctive club at the end of its tail, Ankylosaurus stood as a creature that epitomized nature's ingenuity. This discovery was particularly groundbreaking because it didn't just represent a new species. It became the cornerstone of an entirely new group of dinosaurs, the Ankylosauria. These animals, belonging to the larger clade Ornithischia, were characterized by their extensive armor plating and herbivorous lifestyle. Within this group, Ankylosaurus belonged to a more specialized family, the Ankylosauridae, distinguished by their massive triangular skulls, stocky builds, and elaborate defensive features. Among all its relatives, Ankylosaurus held a special distinction. It was the largest of its kind ever discovered, with adults reaching lengths of 5.4 to 10 meters, or 17 to 33 feet, and standing about 1.7 meters at the hip. More impressively, these titans weighed between 5 and 8 tons, surpassing even the famously robust Triceratops in mass, and rivaling the earlier aquatic predator Spinosaurus. How could a relatively low-slung animal pack such impressive weight into its frame? The answer lies in its extraordinary construction. Imagine a biological tank meticulously designed for strength and survival. The Ankylosaurus's skeleton was built unlike any other dinosaurs, with dense, compressed bones forming a sturdy foundation for what would become one of nature's most sophisticated armor systems. Recent studies of its bone structure have revealed something fascinating. The bones themselves were uniquely reinforced with internal struts and buttresses, similar to the architectural principles used in modern building construction. This internal reinforcement provided an additional layer of protection beyond just the external armor, making every part of the animal resistant to crushing forces. The Ankylosaurus's skull alone is a marvel of design and intricate functionality. Shaped like a broad triangle, it was designed to withstand immense press. Its jaw mechanics, though less powerful than those of a carnivore, were finely tuned for grinding tough plant material. The teeth, small but ridged, created an effective tool for processing vegetation, and wear patterns suggest a highly specialized feeding strategy. What's more, the placement of its nostrils and the complexity of its nasal passages indicate not only a heightened sense of smell, but also the possibility of thermoregulatory adaptations. Speaking of armor, the Ankylosaurus's defensive system was far more sophisticated than initially understood. While we've known about its bony plates, or osteoderms, for decades, recent microscopic analysis has revealed an intricate network of blood vessels running through these structures. This discovery suggests that the armor might have served multiple purposes, not just protection, but possibly also helping to regulate body temperature, similar to how some modern reptiles use their scales for thermoregulation. The number of these osteoderms remains a subject of debate among paleontologists, with estimates ranging from 30 to well over 100. What's particularly intriguing is their unique construction. Unlike other armored dinosaurs that had solid, thick plates, the Ankylosaurus possessed something more sophisticated: osteoderms with hollow undersides. This seemingly counterintuitive design actually represented a remarkable feat of natural engineering. The hollow structure created a dome-like formation that distributed impact forces more effectively than the solid plates would have, similar to how modern motorcycle helmets use their curved design to protect riders. This adaptation made the armor particularly effective. The Ankylosaurus. I've always been fascinated by its armor, that seemingly impenetrable defense against even the mighty T-Rex. It wasn't just bone, you see. It was an engineering marvel, a testament to natural selection. I find myself returning to the same question. How could evolution produce such an effective weapon? Beneath the armored plates, there was this incredible network of collagen fibers, far surpassing anything we see in modern armored animals. Some paleontologists have even speculated that Ankylosaurus might have used its tail club for intraspecific communication or dominance disputes. I can imagine the display of their tail clubs, combined with body size and posturing, deterring rivals without escalating into physical conflict. Though the evidence remains inconclusive, I'm hopeful that further fossil discoveries may provide clarity on this aspect of their behavior. Ankylosaurus thrived in the rich and dynamic ecosystems of late Cretaceous North America, particularly in regions that would later become known as the Hell Creek Formation. This area was a mosaic of environments, ranging from subtropical forests to open floodplains teeming with diverse flora and fauna. Fossilized plant remains suggest that Ankylosaurus inhabited regions with abundant low-growing vegetation, which suited its low-slung, ground-grazing body. The climate of the late Cretaceous was warmer and more humid than today, which supported lush forests dominated by conifers, cycads, and ferns. Ankylosaurus likely played a role in shaping this ecosystem, though perhaps not as extensively as herding dinosaurs like hadrosaurs. Instead, its selective feeding habits might have influenced plant growth patterns in localized areas. The association of Ankylosaurus fossils with specific types of vegetation has led researchers to hypothesize that they may have helped disperse seeds, inadvertently promoting plant diversity. Advanced imaging of Ankylosaurus skull fossils has revealed intricate nasal passages. These passages likely served a dual purpose, enhancing its olfactory capabilities and aiding in thermoregulation. The convoluted structure of these nasal cavities, which created a larger surface area, may have allowed it to cool or warm incoming air, helping it adapt to the varied climates of the late Cretaceous period. Vision and hearing also played a role. Its eyes were relatively small, but their placement on the sides of its skull would have provided a wide field of view, allowing it to detect predators approaching from almost any direction. This peripheral vision, combined with its heightened sense of smell, would have made it difficult for ambush predators like Tyrannosaurus rex to catch it off guard. The structure of its inner ear suggests it was capable of detecting low-frequency sounds, which could have been useful for sensing the movements of large predators or communicating with others of its kind. I find it particularly interesting to consider how the Ankylosaurus may have used its sensory abilities in conjunction with its defensive adaptations. Its acute sense of smell and hearing could have allowed it to detect a predator's approach early enough to position itself defensively, presenting its armored back and tail club as a deterrent. His meticulous examination and publications corrected the initial misclassification, revealing that the teeth belonged to an entirely different kind of prehistoric creature. The newly proposed classification reflected the immense size and formidable presence of this crocodilian, which was aptly named Deinosuchus hacheri. When I first encountered the name Deinosuchus, I was immediately struck by the sheer scale of the creature. Initially, It was thought these ancient crocodilians could reach almost 50 feet in length and weigh over 10 tons. Even though those first guesses were a bit too high, the real size of Deinosuchus is still incredible. Unlike some other prehistoric giants, Deinosuchus has kept its reputation as a true behemoth. There are three main types of Deinosuchus that we know about. There's Hatcheri, Rugosus, and Riograndensis. The Hatcheri species, found in North Carolina, was one of the first ones we identified, giving us some really important clues about how these creatures were built and how they lived. Then there's the Rugosus species, mostly found in Montana. They were a bit more heavily built, maybe because they hunted different things or lived in a different environment. And then there's the Riograndensis, found in Texas. This one was even bigger than the others. We've found more of their remains, and they're in better shape, so we understand a lot more about what they did and how they lived. His team found that the way the skull and teeth were built could have supported a really strong bite. With those strong teeth, some of them designed for crushing bones, Deinosuchus could have put a lot of press on its prey. The most recent evidence seems to suggest that the bite force was probably on the higher end of the estimates. This would mean that Deinosuchus really did have one of the most powerful bites of any predator we know about. It fits with what we see in its skull and teeth, suggesting that it could create an extreme amount of force. With its strong bite and big teeth, about the size of a banana, Deinosuchus was definitely a top predator in its time. It was well equipped to hunt the biggest animals around. Imagine a crocodile so immense it could prey on dinosaurs. That's Deinosuchus. Fossilized tail vertebrae show bite marks consistent with this giant, telling us a story of a predator that even the duck-billed dinosaurs, like Griosaurus and Chasmosaurus, feared. Its size and strength meant even armored Ankylosaurus and Hydrosaurus were potential meals. Even large theropods like Apalachiosaurus weren't safe, with bite marks on their bones attributed to Deinosuchus. I find it fascinating how this apex predator likely shaped the size and distribution of other theropods in its eastern habitat, becoming the uncontested ruler. Coprolite analysis, the study of fossilized feces, offers direct evidence of Deinosuchus's diet. Deinosuchus was a highly successful predator with remains found throughout the United States and northern Mexico. During its prime, the American continent was divided by the Western Interior Seaway, a shallow sea, and Deinosuchus thrived on both sides. It inhabited diverse environments, including estuaries, freshwater lakes, rivers, and possibly even deeper marine waters, although some believe the marine remains could have been displaced after death. Its adaptability is showcased by its preference for estuaries, those coastal bodies of brackish water with river or stream inlets. But it also thrived in freshwater lakes and rivers and was potentially present in marine environments. Its strong limbs and tail allowed it to navigate both aquatic and terrestrial settings, tolerating varying salinity levels, which further demonstrates its ecological flexibility. If Deinosuchus did venture into deeper waters, it might have encountered other giant predators like Tiosaurus, one of the largest mosasaurs. This interaction could suggest a complex predator-prey dynamic within its ecosystem, influencing the behavior and distribution of various species. Deinosuchus lived alongside a vast array of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. It coexisted with herbivorous dinosaurs like Anodontosaurus, Gryosaurus, Cosmoceratops, and Eutriceratops, among many others. Bite marks on the bones of hadrosaurs and other dinosaurs provide clear evidence of its predatory behavior. Recent studies of fossil deposits across North America have revealed fascinating insights into their social structure and hunting territories. Unlike modern African lions that typically control territories of 100 to 200 kilometers, evidence suggests that American lions commanded vastly larger ranges, some extending up to 500 kilometers per pride. This massive territory was a necessity, not a luxury, given their enormous size and corresponding caloric needs. The fossil record tells us an intriguing story of their social dynamics. While modern lions live in prides of up to 15 individuals, American lion social groups appear to have been smaller but more efficient. Bone assemblages at key sites like the Page-Ladson site in Florida and the Rancho La Brea deposits suggest groups of 4 to 6 adults working together with devastating effectiveness. Their smaller pride size, combined with their larger individual mass, meant each pride needed to bring down fewer, but larger, prey animals to sustain themselves. Perhaps most fascinating is the evidence of their den sites discovered in caves across the American West. These sites, particularly those found in the Grand Canyon region, show signs of multi-generational use, some caves bearing marks of occupation spanning thousands of years. The walls of these dens often bear deep scoring marks from claws, a behavior seen in modern big cats, but at a scale that dwarfs anything in the present day. When I consider this anatomical feature alongside the problem-solving skills we see in modern panther species, it becomes clear that the American lion was likely a highly intelligent predator. This intelligence is evident in their interaction with natural hazards. They were one of the most common large carnivores of their time, yet their fossils are surprisingly underrepresented in tar pit deposits compared to other predators like dire wolves and Smilodon. It suggests they were better at recognizing and avoiding these natural traps. They possessed a level of environmental awareness that set them apart. Their range was vast, stretching across much of North America, from Alaska to central Mexico. They adapted to various environments, from open grasslands to semi-forested regions. They shared their territory with an impressive array of Pleistocene megafauna: woolly mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and early human populations. Recent studies of cave paintings and other archaeological evidence suggest these massive cats left a lasting impression on human cultures, potentially influencing early American art and mythology. Then, about 12,877 years ago, it all ended. The American lion vanished, coinciding with a broader extinction event that claimed many of North America's large mammals. This timing aligns with both significant climate changes at the end of the last ice age and the expansion of human populations across the continent. The exact cause of their extinction remains debated, but it was likely a combination of these factors: changing environments, reducing prey availability, and increasing human press. It may have pushed these magnificent predators past their breaking point. But then, there was another prehistoric ruler, not of the land, but of the sky, a creature of immense size and power, casting a huge shadow over anything below. This was Quetzalcoatlus. Quetzalcoatlus belonged to the Azhdarchidae family of pterosaurs, known primarily from the late Cretaceous period. Discovered in 1971 in Texas, the holotype consists of portions of an arm, including the humerus and wing finger. The paleontologist who discovered it purely by chance soon realized that it was a monstrous beast. He was so mesmerized by its size that he named the creature after a mythological Aztec serpent god. Additionally, he named it Northropi after an aircraft manufacturing company that creates modern marvels of the sky. Quetzalcoatlus Northropi, the timeless conqueror of the skies, and the first of its kind to grace human knowledge. Eventually, Quetzalcoatlus lawsoni was found to be the second species within the Quetzalcoatlus genus. However, Northropi always took the spotlight. It has become common knowledge that Quetzalcoatlus is the biggest pterosaur and the largest flying animal in history. But despite its enormous size and cohabitation with the iconic Tyrannosaurus, little is known about its biology. Its enormous wingspan was first estimated to be 21 meters, nearly 69 feet. At first, it was thought to have been broader than the F-22 fighter plane. However, it was soon determined that these numbers were a bit over the top. Paleontologists today believe that it probably grew to be between 10 to 12 meters, or 33 to 39 feet wide, which is still larger than an F-16, and by far the largest animal flying around on this planet. Not to mention that it stood roughly the same height as a giraffe on the ground. Some researchers believe it may have weighed as much as 250 kilograms, very close to our grizzly bear friend. Even though Quetzalcoatlus luni was much smaller, it nonetheless had a wide wingspan, possibly 4.5 to 6 n. For years, the largest of Quetzalcoatlus was known as the largest pterosaur to ever exist. However, the recent discoveries of larger species have challenged it in size and weight. One such giant is called Hatzegopteryx, the titanic pterosaur, hailing from current Europe that possessed a similar wingspan to Quetzalcoatlus, but was larger in weight. It also had a bigger skull, guaranteeing its epicness. Despite falling short in the weight department, Quetzalcoatlus is still the largest pterosaur that ever lived and flew over the lands in North America. In addition to the size being remarkable, this magnificent creature possessed features that set them apart from other animals of the time. For instance, Quetzalcoatlus lacked feathers and had no tail. This model, about the size of Quetzalcoatlus lawsoni, used a basic computer as an autopilot and successfully demonstrated the effectiveness of the hypothesized flight mechanics. The unique hind limb proportions of Quetzalcoatlus and other azhdarchids, more akin to modern running ungulate mammals than their smaller relatives, suggest a unique adaptation to terrestrial life. Even though they were quadrupeds on the ground, this further piqued the curiosity of scientists about their lifestyle and feeding habits. The prevailing theory is that Quetzalcoatlus was a carnivore, but its exact diet has been a subject of much debate. Douglas Lawson, the scientist who first discovered Quetzalcoatlus, initially suggested it scavenged on the carcasses of titanosaur sauropods, much like a marabou stork. The fossil's location, far from the coast and without evidence of large rivers or lakes, seemed to support this idea. However, this scavenging theory was challenged in 1996. Scientists pointed out that unlike the hooked beaks of specialized scavenger birds, Quetzalcoatlus had a lower jaw that bent so steeply downward that even when closed, a significant gap remained between it and the upper jaw. This led to the proposal that Quetzalcoatlus fed like modern skimmers, cleaving the waves with its beak to snatch fish in midair, aided by its long neck vertebrae and toothless jaws. While this skimming theory gained traction, it wasn't scientifically tested until 2007. A study revealed that the energy demands of skimming would have been too great for such a massive creature, making it an unlikely feeding strategy. A year later, another study examining the dietary habits of Rassids noted that the remains of these reptiles were rarely found near large bodies of water, further undermining the skimming hypothesis. This study also highlighted anatomical differences between Quetzalcoatlus and known skimmers. Skimmers possess necks designed to absorb sudden impacts, an adaptation absent in Ajdarchid fossils. In fact, attempting to skim would likely have resulted in a broken neck. Instead, their anatomy more closely resembles modern storks, suggesting that they primarily pursued and hunted small animals on land. So, for a time, Quetzalcoatlus and its relatives were viewed as giant vultures, scavenging on the remains of dinosaurs and other dead animals. But with each passing year, with each new scientific advancement, we continue to piece together a more complete picture of this unique creature that once dominated the skies of the late Cretaceous Maastrichtian Age in North America. It seems Quetzalcoatlus most likely thrived in a variety of environments, including coastal regions and inland plains. These expansive landscapes offered ample opportunities. The thought of encountering Quetzalcoatlus, it makes me grateful to live in a time beyond their reign. Imagine, if you will, that the skies teemed with creatures like Quetzalcoatlus, giants unlike anything we see today. It's believed that Quetzalcoatlus lawson may have lived in swarms near alkaline lakes, sociable birds waiting for their moment. But Quetzalcoatlus northropi, on the other hand, was most likely a solitary hunter, roaming freely inland. The creature had several options for hunting, nesting, and roosting. And it wasn't the only giant that roamed the earth back then. Fossils hint at the possibility of Quetzalcoatlus coexisting with creatures like Tyrannosaurus and Torosaurus, although conclusive studies are still needed. Quetzalcoatlus may have crossed paths with Alamosaurus, along with other herbivorous giants and fearless predators like the mighty T-Rex, Dromaeosaurus, Triceratops, Albertosaurus, Edmontosaurus, and Dakotaraptor. In the skies, Quetzalcoatlus likely shared the space with other pterosaurs such as Pteranodon and Nyctosaurus, all coexisting within those extinct ecosystems.